Hello and welcome to another IBM Developer Meetup for Australia and New Zealand. Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to like and subscribe to get the latest updates, news, events, and more.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. I have lost my... Oh, here we go. Welcome to the March IBM event. We have got the very talented Mr. Marc Hildenbrand here tonight, and also Cong Nguyen. First up, though, I'd like to pass over to Steve to do our welcome to country. Steve.
Hello, everyone. So amazing to be here. Before we get underway, I'd like to begin by acknowledging and paying our respects to the traditional owners on the lands on which we meet today, with a special heartfelt and respect and acknowledgement to the Wadawurrung people who are the traditional owners here in Ballarat. I'd also like to pay my respects and acknowledgement to the Indigenous elders past and present. And yeah, thank you very much for joining us. So excited to be here today. Ali's going to come back with the slides any second now. Hey, there we go. We have some, we actually have a special slide view, which is gone now. Anyway, what can go wrong when you're running in production?
Ben, feel free to, there we go. Technical difficulties. Yes, thank you for that, Steve. So to the clouds tonight and beyond. Woo. Actually, I was thinking about this today, and we're talking a bit about CICD today. So, Steve, I've got a new joke for you.
I was waiting to hear this joke. I'm really keen. Because I do love a good dev joke. I don't know if you know.
Deeper into one, but I digress. But what happened to the dev when he did a webhook?
I don't know. What happened to the dev?
He caught a cloud, obviously.
Oh, wait.
I love that I've got canned laughter because that's the only laugh I'm going to get for that one.
That's why I have it. That's the way people laugh at my jokes now.
And that is exactly why I wear this hat everywhere, guys. It's not just because it's a cool OpenShift hat. It's also so I don't hurt my head face palming at Steve all the time.
Also protects you from the sun.
Oh, yeah. Except I sit inside all the time, so that's not a thing. Anyway, so first up tonight, I've got a little bit of an opening with Ben Peterson. He's going to give us a bit of a rundown on what 2021 has in store for us. Super excited about that. Also coming up is the amazing Cong Nguyen, who is from the IBM Garage, going to be talking to us about all things ArgoCD, fitting in nicely with my CICD joke. Thank you, Cong. And the talented Mr. Ripley, a.k.a. Marc Hildenbrand from Red Hat.
Woo!
To get him to come again tonight, Steve? Was it, say, OpenShift 3 times?
You do have to say OpenShift 3 times to get the Mark to appear. See, there he is now. I'm pretty sure we said it at least 3 times.
I do not endorse the occult. I just need to say that. Just as a representative of Red Hat. Anyway, I'll get back in my box.
Yeah, and then we'll do a closing. So basic courtesy at our event, as always. Oh, sorry, the venue, obviously, maybe not everyone has seen Remo. Fairly simple at the moment. We're in presenter mode, so you won't be able to turn your micro camera on and talk because that's for presenters. But feel free when we get back into networking mode to jump around the tables, meet some new people, and just have a little bit of a chat. Any issues, you can also chat if you have questions, in the middle of the speeches. There's also a little messages box, and that will come up with a little Q&A box as well, so you can type any questions in there if you've got questions of our awesome presenters tonight. And that probably does it for adults. Well, hopefully you know where they are at your house.
I'd hope so by now.
Yeah, I don't know how you've been holding on that long otherwise. That's probably dangerous. But anyway, code of conduct, as always, be excellent to each other, inclusive, diversity, respectful, and friendly, which I know you all are. So thank you. And now, firstly, I'm going to introduce the awesome Ben Peterson to give us a lowdown on 2021. Ben Peterson, are you there?
That was your cue, Ben.
I was waiting for the awesome Ben Peterson to show up. I'm like, hang on a second. There's more? Thanks, guys, and welcome everyone to our first meetup of 2021. Following our last meetup of 2020, we made it.
So thank you so much, and great to see everyone here as well. And we've survived this far, and so I'm confident that we're going to make it through this year. Just wanted to quickly come in and say a couple of words at the start of this meetup, being our first of the year, just to talk a little bit about what's happening in IBM land and the broader ecosystem as well. Give you a bit of context, because it's always good to get a bit of an update. So let's rewind a little bit to 2020. Start of the year, lots of stuff happened. There was a lot of seismic changes, a lot of digital transformation accelerated. In fact, you probably, what were the main drivers of your digital transformation? CTO, CIO, COVID. So we saw a huge shift in digital transformation. Take it back a year earlier, IBM was already seeing some of these shifts around hybrid cloud and the journey towards a digital future, starting to bring monolithic workloads to a future state. And IBM decided to make a big bet on a little company named Red Hat, little open source company, nice little outfit. So IBM decided to jump in, to dive into open source land, and acquired Red Hat for $34 billion. That's right, huge investment in open source, what is essentially a company that engages with community to help to bring people together, ideas, innovation, solve problems together, and work with clients. So that was a huge change. We also had another large change in that we changed CEOs, global CEOs, from Jeannie Rometty, who'd done a great job of steering the company through to our new CEO, Arvind Krishna, a technologist at heart, one of the architects, certainly, of the Red Hat acquisition and of our hybrid cloud strategy moving forward. So there's some big things happening in IBM land. Then last year, through COVID and through the major impacts across the world, IBM announced that we were going to be spinning off our managed infrastructure part of the business, which was a huge chunk of the business, $19 billion company in its own right. So we decided that we're going to spin that part of the business out into its own entity, which will, as a standalone company, will be the largest managed infrastructure business in the world. So another huge shift. The next step in all of this was to essentially re-platform and rehome all of our software and hardware products around OpenShift, which is the Red Hat Kubernetes platform, and end-to-end platform. Actually, calling it a Kubernetes platform is not giving it anywhere near the kudos that it needs. It's everything. So we decided to re-architect all of our solutions, software, hardware, around this new hybrid cloud platform. And then the next step in the evolution is to change the business model to be engaging with ecosystems. So now, coming into 2021, IBM is all about the ecosystem. So we've completely re-architected everything from the ground up, from our business model to our technology to our go-to-market to our leadership to our teams, and we're now fully behind the ecosystem, working with partners, helping to engage with the innovation ecosystem, from startups to ISVs to businesses large and small, to engage with the enterprise. So just wanted to give you that quick update about what's happening in IBM land. Very exciting. We are now absolutely a hybrid cloud and AI company based around Red Hat and the culture, the technology, engaging with open source, and we're really looking to drive that strategy moving forward and looking to engage with more partners. So if you know of a great startup, a great ISV, someone building some amazing technology, someone that serves the enterprise market, that's obviously where IBM has a very strong foothold, please reach out. Let's get together and we can talk about how we can work together. Also wanted to quickly touch on Call for Code. You'll probably recall Call for Code for hopefully for the last year, but certainly for the last few years. We're actually moving into the fourth year, I believe, of Call for Code, which anyone who isn't aware is the largest tech for good initiative globally. Last year, we had more than 400,000 technologists from around the world participate, solving some of the biggest challenges facing the planet, climate change, obviously COVID. Last year, we pivoted #Agile. We took on some of these challenges, and really proud to say that we actually managed to get 3 of the top 10 teams globally came from Australia, including second place, a team from University of Sydney. So amazing work. We're going to have these amazing teams of technologists and innovators speak at upcoming meetups, certainly when we do the official kickoff. But we're very excited to be driving this initiative again this year. Hopefully you can get involved. Tell your friends, tell your neighbours, tell your grandma. We want everyone involved. Australia is really punching above its weight, so we want to make sure we continue that. So please reach out to Developer Steve, Ali, any of the team to engage, and looking forward to innovating with you again this year. So I'll pass back over to you, Ali. Sorry if I took way too long. I know you're looking at your watch, but back over to you.
Never, Ben. Looking at my watch, I would not be. But thank you for that intro. Really appreciate that. I'm just looking for myself. Well, happened this year. Hasn't quite happened this year.
You could say that scene was a little alien.
Hey. So thank you very much, Ben. And I disappeared. Whoops. Anyway, tech error there. Thank you very much for that, Ben. And yeah, I'm super looking forward to this year. Call for Go is going to be epic. I got some plans in the works, but we'll tell you some more about that after the speeches. And otherwise, first up, we are going to. Well, we're going to move on to the talks now. So first up, we have the amazing tech guru, Mr. Cong Nguyen from the IBM Garage, who is going to talk to us about ArgoCD. I've got my slides the wrong way around. Cong is from a cloud engineer at the IBM Tech Garage. I know I've heard his workshops before. They are always not just super technical, but super entertaining as well. And really give you some great advice. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Cong, welcome.
Woo, come up, Cong.
Thanks, Ali. Thanks, Steve. Let me just share my screen. Also tell everybody to lower your expectations.
Don't lower your expectations. It's going to be amazing. All right. Thank you, Cong.
All right. So let's get started. You can see my screen. Fantastic. So you don't need to take any screenshots. All this slide will be available on a link that I will be sharing on the chat in about 5 seconds. It will be available on that link after 7:30 p.m. today. It's been scheduled. All right, so let's talk about cluster bootstrapping for Kubernetes with ArgoCD. So my name is Cong, as Ali said, and I'm a cloud engineer at IBM Technology Garage. And for this topic, we are not going to talk about how you can deploy OpenShift clusters on any cloud. We talk about if you have an existing Kubernetes or OpenShift cluster and you want to deploy applications onto that cluster. And so let's get started. Right, so some context of this particular project. So earlier this year, I was helping a startup with some of their platform work. And the startup is called Social Profit. Their 3-second pitch is that it's an open, collaborative social data and analytics platform. And the main goal of their platform is to build a knowledge base that grows through major information outlets to build a graph of the social truth. It's a bit different from the factual truth. It's a social truth where people agree on what is real. So with their founder being American, the project also aims to give their users freedom of speech and access to social tools that enable that. So there are about 3 components to their software stack. The first one is that they build a knowledge agent on their very own Linux distribution system called Social OS, which is built on top of Elementary OS. And they build like a knowledge agent on Albert and Raza. So Albert is like Spotlight, but for Linux. And Raza is kind of similar to our Watson Assistant, like IBM Watson Assistant, but with a lot less features. And it's based on open semantic search and C knowledge for knowledge graph and semantic web kind of thing. And then the second layer is that they're building in their own collaborative tools, open source ones. So for example, they got a Twitter clone is open source, and also got a Facebook clone, which is also open source tools. And pair this with their own knowledge platform to build that social truth platform I talked about earlier. And all of these are being hosted, going to be hosted on a social profit platform, which is effectively a lot of Kubernetes, which I actually spend a lot of my time in this area. And very early on, the social profit guys decided they want to use Google Cloud Platform, the GKE, Google Kubernetes Engine, to host their platform. And coming from OpenShift and IBM Cloud, going to work on GKE for a few months, it opened my eyes to some really good things that IBM Cloud and OpenShift doesn't have right now. And like I'm just showing an example on the right-hand side of the screen here, which is the object browser. Like on OpenShift on the left-hand side, you can see that you have a GUI. Yes, that's fantastic. But it only has a certain set of pre-built objects, Kubernetes objects that you can go through. And I know that Red Hat's adding more all the time, so that's great. But on the right, you can see that GKE has an object browser that lets you see all the custom resource dimensions inside the clusters that I got on the Prophet platform. And that's quite cool. But also on GKE, they also have this thing called the hierarchical namespace, which is built into the Anthos config management that lets teams own a parent namespace and able to create children namespaces inside that same cluster. And all of it is built in Anthos config management, so you can just write some config in Git and away you go. And there's a great talk by Adrian Ludwin on Google on YouTube called Multi-Tenant Clusters with Hierarchical Namespaces. It's like, going traveling, there's a few things, home comfort I would love to have that we got right now in OpenShift. And the first one, the biggie one, is called OpenShift Routes. So if you're not familiar with OpenShift, they Red Hat standardized the ingress controllers for OpenShift on this thing they built, HA proxy, which is fantastic. It configures all the DNS for you. And if you choose to do so, you can also configure the cert managers inside this particular cluster. And it's all managed for you, essentially. There's one system, you just pick it up and use it. Great. We got the pre-install operator hub with OpenShift 4.x and onwards, and has a GUI. I love GUIs. And the last thing is that they got a lot of security policies built into the system. About 20 of them are on the worker node, pre-configured with port for the port security, which is using the security context constraints. And you can get a guide called the OpenShift 400 guide from your local Red Hatter, i.e. Marc Hildenbrand. I'm looking at the screen because that shows you what Red Hat has done on their OpenShift distribution, Kubernetes distribution. And all of these, going through all these experiences really got me to understand one of Marc Hildenbrand's famous quote: OpenShift is Kubernetes for developers. It's great. So back to the main topic. So the goal of the social profit platform is to spin up a lot of clusters and install tools on them based on a usage tiers, based on a region and based on the users. So also, I forgot to mention earlier, is a social platform aims to provide managed Kubernetes experiences for their users. They have a basic free tier and also a kind of higher paying tier with GPUs and everything like that. So before we get to ArgoCD, I'm just going to mention some other tools out there right now that does kind of the same thing from Red Hat. The tool wasn't made by Red Hat and IBM. One of them, actually, two of them are made by Red Hat and IBM, but with some publicly available source code where you can go through and play around with the code. So the first one is Terraform. We all love Terraform. It's used extensively in IBM Cloud Native Toolkit to install the CICD tools into Kubernetes and OpenShift clusters on IBM Cloud. And that's the GitHub repo. The second one is beloved by Red Hat, called Ansible. One of their, and they use Ansible to bootstrap all their OpenShift Labs clusters. And the major one is called ArgoCD. And the other one, they just also list their guide on how you can do it. Ansible, interestingly, is also used to create the installer operators for IBM Cloud Pak. And if you don't know what IBM Cloud Pak is, it came as a containerized. They are effectively containerized IBM middleware, but it's grown a lot more than that now. And the last one is called RASI, which is also open source, created by IBM Cloud team to deploy admin tools onto hundreds or thousands or maybe more of IBM Cloud Kubernetes cluster around the globe. And there's a great talk by an IBM engineer that talks about how they do this with LaunchDarkly to deploy, the admin tools at scale. And also, RASI is also being used in IBM Cloud Satellite config. And if you don't know about IBM Cloud Satellite, it's like a tool for you, as a platform for you to deploy IBM Cloud services onto your on-prem clusters. And what this allows you to do is you can bring really intelligent compute resources to your on-prem data sources, so you don't have any latency between the two. All right, so let's talk about ArgoCD next. So ArgoCD, as Marc will walk you through later, is commonly used as a continuous delivery tool in the CICD pipeline. A great thing is that from OpenShift 4.7 and onwards, it's supported by Red Hat. So you don't have to use you could use the community one, but I mean, you pay for OpenShift anyway, so why not get support from them as well? The Red Hat Labs guy created like a journey called Ubiquitous Journey, which uses ArgoCD app of apps pattern to deploy things onto their OpenShift platform. So when ArgoCD is installed onto Kubernetes or OpenShift, it creates a lot of custom resource definitions, or CRD for short, which is this thing right here, CRD, custom resource definitions. We are using CRD from now on, way shorter to say. And there are like maybe 3-4 important things to notice. The kind is application. It has a source which references the design state, which is stored in a Git repository. It has a repo URL, which is the Git repo. It has a path, which the folder contains all the YAML files. Target revision. So this is like you can use any branches if you like. For this example, I'm just using the word head to indicate the master branch. And for this particular example, this application is going to be using some Helm charts with a value file stored inside a values.yaml file. And then you also have to specify the destination. So this particular application will be installed into an namespace called tools. And the server is this URL, which is the Kubernetes API server. Now, this URL has a special meaning in the Kubernetes land, and that is it's going to be installed inside the same cluster that ArgoCD is installed in. There's also another project called Default, but this is in no relation to OpenShift project or Kubernetes namespace. It's just a ArgoCD project. Right. All right. So for this example and demo going forward, we are going to show how you can use the ubiquitous journey, or UJ henceforth, on OpenShift clusters. And the reason for this is because there are some fundamental differences between Kubernetes and OpenShift. They build some, the routing and whatnot onto OpenShift. And the UJ works really well with OpenShift. Also, this journey takes about an hour to deploy. So because, we have a talk about half an hour, I have recorded some demos and we're just going to sprint through them. All right. So this is playing. It is playing. It's a UJ on GitHub, and as you can see, there is a dependency on Helm 3. Now, to use UJ well, you need to know Helm, like really need to know Helm, and you also need to know how to do YAML well. I'm going to go through like how the config is written in a sec. You need OpenShift 4.3 onwards with cluster admin user required. The only reason for this is because ArgoCD requires cluster admin role binding to be installed into the cluster. All right, and there are 2 commands that this particular tool uses. The bootstrap, we're going to look into it in a sec. And then, so the first thing you do is you bootstrap all the tools and install the ArgoCD tooling and create some projects. And when I say project, I mean Kubernetes namespace. It's a different term to mean the same thing effectively. And then you run this second command to install all the tools that you want. All right, so I have here is my trusty old VS Code. I'm going to run Helm dependency update bootstrap to download the dependencies into the bootstrap folder, which sits right there. So it's going to download like 3 dependencies: bootstrap, project, ArgoCD, operator, and seal secrets. And if I open up, you can see this is the Helm chart that lists the dependencies that we've seen in the terminal. And now I'm just going to show you the values file. So the values file, the way that the Red Hat guys wrote it is that they have the name of the dependency on top and then a bunch of configuration at the bottom. And as I mentioned earlier, you need to know your YAML well-ish. So for example, this ampersand CICD is like a variable in Helm world, where it's going to store the string labs-ci.cd into the phrase CICD, which is going to be a reference later in this line right here, where it says star CICD. So every time it's mentioned CICD, star CICD, Helm is going to replace the CICD with the phrase lab CICD. Quite cool. And some other config. So now if I have a look into the dependencies, I'm going to open this in Finder and extract it so you can have a look and see how the Helm charts are written in that particular dependency. And it's just quite interesting. So if I open a template, you can see that it's a lot of Helm. And it's been templatized in such a way that you can just, replace. So, okay, so this is a plugin how Helm works, just quickly. So we have here a template. This template has some, holder values, which is going to be replaced by the value.yaml file in the default Helm chart. But if another file called values.yaml exists, or if it exists and you specify that in the parent chart, then the values in the parent chart is going to override the values in the child chart. And so there's basically some defaults essentially. And as you can see, this particular Helm, this particular YAML defines a namespace that looks for some namespace keys that are defined earlier at the top, which is also defined in the values.yaml file, which we saw earlier in the values-bootstrap YAML. Yep, and that's just showing you about it. And the Helm guy has this this convention where they have it enabled true here, where if it's not enabled, you basically just don't install it. Helm is a mysterious world with a lot of conventions. It's like Ruby on Rails, just harder, in my opinion. All right, this is just showing you how things work. All right. Oh, and now I'm, extracting the ArgoCD operator as well to, show you how things goes. So this particular Bootstrap chart does not use the ArgoCD Helm chart. It instead uses the ArgoCD operator. And if you're unfamiliar with operators, I would recommend watching Marc Hildenbrand's Operator 101 on YouTube. I think he's got a YouTube video called How to Do Operator with Java. Great if you come from a Java background. In that video, he's going to explain as well how operators work. It basically does all your ops work for you if you write it and commands Kubernetes to do that work for you. It's actually quite interesting technology. And this is going through how the YAML file looks. It's just a lot of templating. And the good thing is, if you're doing what Red Hat's doing right now, like just deploying this particular the bootstrapping chart onto your OpenShift cluster, you don't have to do any of this work yourself. But no projects are greenfield, and we need to do this sometime in the future. All right, so this is this was showing the second command, the Helm template -f of use this file, argo as of apps, ubiquitous journey, and we're gonna go and see how it works. So this assumes that you have deployed an ArgoCD tool onto your cluster, and similar to the other values file, this file configs what tools you want to install by having 3 different values YAML files. And again, a massive application YAML template that we saw earlier, but it had basically the same config as the application, the basic expanded application config CRD we saw earlier. Had an application kind, it have a destination, it has a source, and if the app has some Helm template, we put this plugin, and otherwise it won't. And they also added this finalizer in ArgoCD, which basically just means that if this particular application is deleted from the cluster, ArgoCD will delete everything for you instead of you having to go in and delete things yourself. And this is just showing different values from the values file. There are like 3 values files. There's the values tooling, so you install all the tools. There's extra tooling, so some extra tooling I think is to install Mattermost and some other collaborative communication tools inside the cluster. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just run this command and for you to have a look and see what are templatized. So you have 3 YAML files here. You have your application, 3 applications that install into the lab CICD namespace with the specified values.tooling file. And that's about it to this particular config. All right. And I think I'm just gonna skip ahead just a little. Okay, so this is just me showing exactly what it means by putting it into a YAML file so we can see some colors. Colors are always nice. All right. So that is basically how this particular thing is templatized. And now we go into the next one to see how you can deploy it. All right. So before we actually get to the deploying part, when I was doing a dry run of, installing this installing the Bootstrap project into the cluster, I found out something weird. The Red Hat guys created this thing called the delete CSV YAML, which deletes everything that has been created. And the reason I think they included this delete CSV file is to delete the leftover ArgoCD configurations beforehand. But for some reason, this doesn't work. It just spins everything up. And once this particular file has found, it's a Kubernetes job. And once the job has found, the ArgoCD, it just delete everything. And I just couldn't figure out why. So I just delete the files just for my benefit. And when I run the command, let me just go back up a bit. I also deleted the -- dependency update so that it doesn't pull down any, newer dependency charts, because I delete the delete CSV file and I was doing this in real time. So I knew at that time that if it update the dependency, it's gonna include the delete.csv file, which is gonna mess up everything. So deleted that one and move on. So it's gonna create a bunch of rows, row bindings, create some namespaces you can see here. And now I go to my brown OpenShift cluster. I can see that the namespace has been created. ArgoCD operator is being installed, and I sped up just a little bit. It took about 6 minutes to install. And then I go to my developer topology view. I love the developer topology view. It's the best thing that Red Hat brought to Kubernetes. And I can see, so if I go back a bit, you can kind of see that the pod is spinning up. So when it's haven't spun up yet, it's like blue, light blue. And then when they all spun up, they are solid blue. Great, right? And when I solid blue, I go to my ArgoCD server, and this is the main difference between the Argo operator is stored in the UJ, and the default community one is that they added in this login via OpenShift button, so you don't have to find the admin and user password the conventional way. Login, and because I was on IBM Cloud, it's gonna authorize, and then admin. Great, right? So now that I have my ArgoCD project set up, I'm going to run a second command, which will install all the tools into my ArgoCD project, Argo my cluster. So very briefly right there, I sped up like 7 times because it took about 20 minutes to run. Sorry, let me just get back to that real quick. Oh, sorry. So first stage is that it creates 3 separate applications inside ArgoCD. Each of them is out of sync, because the state right now in the cluster does not match the state defined in the Git repo or the charts. And because we've enabled, the UJ, the Red Hat Labs has enabled, syncing, it will automatically go in and then just deploy everything for you out of the box. And because I sped up like 7 times, this is gonna zoom through real quick, and you can see the out of sync updates just go up and then going down quickly. Also, so when the app sync goes up, the sync goes down, that kind of thing. And that is just basically, how it's deployed. Now I go back to my OpenShift cluster. I can see all the pods spinning up inside the lab CICD project, which is synonymous to a degree to OpenShift names, OpenShift projects. So OpenShift project is synonymous to Kubernetes namespace with a lot of added control and authentication built in. So they're just spin up by themselves. I can see some red thing here what I need to fix later, but that is effectively it. Real simple, real easy to go forward with. So let's talk about the pros and cons with using ArgoCD to bootstrap your cluster. There's three pros here. The first one is that it uses the same tool in your CI pipeline for bootstrapping, so you don't have an external dependency like Ansible or Terraform aside from Git. And with ArgoCD, you get enterprise support from Red Hat going 4.7 and onwards. Fantastic. But the bad thing about ArgoCD is that you have to wait for your resources to be deployed. Granted, I only do a demo and I didn't go deep dive into how you can set up webhooks and whatnot, but that's extra work you need to do. And I don't have any things like wait and register like in Ansible or Terraform notifications. So some downsides there. And that is the end of my talk. Any questions, Ali and Steve? Oh, thank you for listening.
Hey.
Woo! That was amazing.
Thank you, Cong Nguyen.
I wonder if they can still hear me.
I always learn something new when I listen to your.
Should do a mic check, just like Mark.
Thank you for that. Can you hear me? Yes.
Can you hear us, Cong?
Now I could.
Okay.
Okay. Few tech issues there. Stand by. No.
See, this is why testing's important, right? Because test patterns. That wasn't my new joke.
Great to have you here, Jason. Yes, check out the YouTube channel before. I'll post a link to that on the meetups as well as in here. We have a few questions, Cong, if you don't mind. On the top rated ones, is there a place I can get a demo OpenShift instance, probably to play around with and try this out?
Of course. There's like a few of them. Let me share my screen real quick. Bring this browser over here. Turn off the bookmarks. No one can see my favorites.
Should I put music on?
Nah, it's fine.
Elevator music. Put on the elevator music.
All right. There are about 3 to 4 places to get a free OpenShift cluster. The one that I like the most is actually from Red Hat, called learn.OpenShift.
I thought you were going to show us one, and it's amazing.
While you're doing that, I need to ask, are you using Bing?
Vim?
Bing!
Bing,
what?
B-I-N-G. Never mind.
Bing? Oh, okay. Anyway, so once that load up, I'm going to show you what's going on there.
This is one of my favorites.
Is from IBM Developer, and the cool thing is, it runs on IBM
one of my
Cloud.
favorites.
So you can see the link here is developer.ibm.com/openlabs/OpenShift. I'm just going to put a link into chat, but my system is lagging massively because I have got about 5 browsers opening, and you know how browsers go these days. Thanks, Ali. I sent a second link now.
Especially using Bing. We have some other questions too. One is Helm harder than Haskell? I think this was on the back of is not as hard as Ruby on Rails. You don't have to answer that one because Haskell is amazing. If you want, that's right. We'll skip over that one.
On Go.
There you go.
Yeah. So this is the OpenShift Playground. You can have a free cluster for 1 hour. On IBM Cloud, you can have a free cluster for 4 hours. Go figure. Anyway, moving on.
So get on that one if you want to try out some of the things that Cong has gone through tonight, and also what the amazing Marc is going to talk to us about. Couple more questions though, just before we go. Is there a good repository for charts that you'd recommend?
It depends on what you want to do. I would hunt. No, the hunt is too strong here. Go into GitHub and search for Red Hat -COP, the community of practice. They got some real good work there. What's it? You say charts? I assume you mean Helm charts. So
Yes.
you can
I
just
would
go
say
to. I mean, most Helm charts are good. That's why they're good. You just go to artifactoryhub.io, I think it's called these days, to look up all the Helm chart available there. So all about IBM Cloud Pak, we also have a bunch of charts available, but you need to come through IBM Knowledge Center to, get the charts.
Okay, awesome. So some great resources out there by the sounds of it for Helm charts. So thanks for that question as well. And last question for you, Cong. In the chart config, can you link to intranet or locally available tools?
The chart config?
Yes.
Well,
I think that means Helm chart config.
I mean, if you set up the networking right, you can do anything you want. So, yeah, I think networking at that point.
That would probably be more for big enterprise installs, I'd imagine, where you've got locally available tools that have been vetted by security, etc., that you could link in because they've been approved. But yeah.
Actually, there's a guy in the meetup group right now that can answer those questions really well, and his name is Ben Sweeney. I'm sorry, Ben.
You've been dogged in.
He's a fantastic cloud engineer who works below the platform level, so he's like a god at, well, most things, infrastructure-wise. I would go to him.
I've just given you speaker permission, so now that you've been dobbed in by Cong, maybe you can answer that question for us. All you need to do is turn on your microphone and camera to talk.
No pressure. But if you want to hang out and chat after the thing, that's good too, because we don't want to put you on camera spot.
Which we just did, but he might be
Which we just did.
Thank you so much, Cong. I appreciate that talk. Like I said, always learn something new from you. Some great resources out there. We'll put a few links to that in the meetup, in the stage notes, so to speak, under the YouTube video that we'll put out as well. So you can check those out. And there'll be a download of that whole thing available, as Cong said before in the chat. We'll also put that in the notes as well, so you can refer back to that. Alrighty, so what did you get out of that one, Steve?
I actually have a whole brand new developer joke. I don't know whether this is any good, but it made me chuckle, and that's usually a good indication, I think. But anyway, let's test that hat out of yours.
We'll definitely face palm.
Get ready. Why are YAML files popular at bars?
I've got no idea, Steve. Why are they popular at bars?
This is a formatting answer, and those familiar with YAML will get this, but essentially it's because they put everything on tab. Because the tabs and spaces. Anyway, moving along. I didn't say it was good, but I do have a laugh track. Anyway, we're going to go to the next speaker.
If you have something better than that, put it in the chat as well. There might be a delivery.
Please do. There will be.
Next up, though, we are going to talk to the talented Mr. Marc Hildenbrand. Oops, not going to do upcoming events. We'll rock you. He's a developer advocate for Red Hat, 20 years of experience, all the CV stuff in there. And what I love most about him, though, is every talk he gives is always entertaining and something. So, Marc, thank you. Welcome to the stage. And just to make sure you're here, OpenShift. Hey!
See, that's what it is. I always love these slides. I love these slides. Like, they're always so creative and colorful. And the memes are on point. So just saying, you're in for a treat.
We'll see how we go. We'll see how we go here. So I'll, as Ali and I worked out backstage, I might throw to you, Ali. So be ready. You never know. My internet has a habit of dropping out sometimes. I didn't mention that till now, but I'll just check to make sure I'm still talking to people. Yes. Look. I was really excited to speak at the same night that Cong was speaking, because we're kind of looking at ArgoCD from kind of two different angles, if you will. So Cong got kind of deep into Helm and how ArgoCD gets set up. Not super deep, but deep enough. There's lots of YAML in there and the tabs. Oh my God, Steve, why? Why do you do that? But what I want to talk about is, yes, ArgoCD, but look at it by example. And this unassuming little fellow, he feels pretty on brand to me, because I'm kind of unassuming as well. But this little squid, and you probably are convinced by that because you're here, he has incredible superpowers. And this talk will be littered with public domain superheroes. See if you can find them. But I want to talk a bit about some of those GitOps superpowers, because again, it's more than just infrastructure as code. Let me explain. So typical responses to GitOps, I just have to set the scene. Again, maybe you're one of these people, pick the picture that best describes you. Are you kind of like, I've never really heard of it. I don't really have one opinion one way or the other. Maybe you're confused by it. Like, what the heck is it supposed to mean? GitOps is getting more traction now, but 6 months ago, that's probably more like how I felt, except with shorter hair. Or people are like, ugh, this is just infrastructure as code. Shut up about your boring infrastructure as code. But hold that point, because it's not that, because those who really know that it's something that is awesome. And they should love the little squid thing and all the superpowers that little squid brings. Let's talk about them. So to kind of make a cornerstone or a basis for our discussion, I'm going to go back to the well of the Red Hat Cool Store. This is the Cool Store circa 2019. Weren't those good times? It's since been updated. I haven't updated it yet. Most of our talk will revolve around demos, which are canned for the sake of time, around changing this cool store, right? And the way we want to change this cool store, it's an e-commerce site. We've seen them all before. It's wonderfully, you pick it up and look underneath, it's wonderfully microservices based. But what we find is at the bottom of our funnel, we don't want a payment service running all the time. We just want it to go when somebody actually looks to buy something. So we want to turn our payment service into what's called a Knative. This is something that you can find in GKE, but you can also get supported in OpenShift. So a product called OpenShift Serverless, much like Argo is now supported, as Cong said, in OpenShift 4.7. So we're going to change a normal payment service into a serverless service, and we're going to make that change using GitOps with ArgoCD at the center. So don't forget the stuff that Cong told you already. Now we'll do a little bit, I don't know if this reference means anything to you people in Australia, but in America we had this show growing up for kids. It was called Electric Company, and they'd kind of have two syllables come from either side of the screen. So we're going to start with the Git syllable. So Git, those of you probably know this, but I'll just run through this quickly. GitOps is named for Git, which is great for developers. Those who are developers out there, they love Git because it allows collaboration at a distance. It's iterative. It's governed by a pull request, which we'll talk about more before we're done. And there's history built into it. That's pretty cool. And this over here, this represents sort of like a Git commit graph. It's not a tree, it's a whole graph of magic in Git. But the basic idea is it's diff-based, right? Almost like event-driven, but not quite. On the other side of the coin, we have ops, Git ops. Ops is an ever-evolving discipline. Oh, you operators out there, it used to be about managing name servers back when I was a kid, and there were name servers. Typically, ops was something that would happen in parallel, but now in the world of DevOps, that's all coming closer together, much like the two syllables of the word GitOps. Infrastructure on demand, no more click ops. Again, if we're trying to follow a DevOps kind of, we want to release as often as possible, and ubiquitous journeying, they're big proponents of that at the Red Hat Labs. This is all about automating. We need to automate some of our operations. And finally, increased self-service comes at the cost sometimes of how do we manage that in the SRE. So if we give the developers carte blanche on operations, how are we going to support them all? So ops is also concerned with how do we keep a service up and governed and auditable and all that good stuff. Therefore, GitOps, we put the two syllables together. I mean, I'm cheesy because I'm superhero memes, but it's like operations bitten by a radioactive developer. Well, I don't know. Something like that. I don't know, some Spider-Man reference. You guys sort it out. There are a number of superpowers that I want to go into, and I'll try and show it in a demo, like each of these superpowers. And I'll try not to harp on this stuff too much because Cong has showed you some of the aspects of ArgoCD, so we'll kind of skip through some of that. Just to prove that I'm not a phony, I do have a cluster set up here live, but we'll probably do a lot of what we look at through pre-recordings. However, if you have questions, I'm happy to go to the live site for as much longer as it stays up, which hopefully will be till the end of the talk. We'll just pause for a second. Ali, just quickly, I'm coming through okay? Anything I should change? Should I change the lighting? Should I make it cooler?
All good here. A bit of a hair out of place there, though, I think, Mark. Maybe.
Okay.
Over and no, yeah. It's great.
Yeah, I hope you can see the gray okay. Anyway, all right, cool. Continuing on.
For that.
So we'll talk a little bit about tool chains. So Cong talked to you about CICD, continuous integration, continuous deployment, or deployment, or there's another word for it. Delivery is the other way to think about it. Whichever, you can choose whatever you want the D to be. But for CI, in this demo, you'll see something called Tecton, right? Tecton, the typical CI/CD pipeline, and again, why GitOps matters. CI/CD pipelines, great, you're doing automation, bully for you. A push model of CI/CD means the tool chain, Tecton, Jenkins, whatever it is, knows about the environment that it's trying to deploy to, right? That's sort of a push model. It builds all the stuff as kind of represented here, though I'm showing my hand a bit with this Git repo. We'll talk about that in a second. But Tecton, again, which you can think of as sort of Jenkins if it was born in Kubernetes land. It's like a Kubernetes-y Jenkins deploying, pushing to a cluster. GitOps starts with a pull model. So one of the things that comes in the universe of GitOps, as represented by our weird little squid thing, is this notion of pull. So it's not that the tool chain knows where it's going to go. It instead just pushes into one of two Git repos, typically. One represents the artifacts that are created, and one represents, so an image registry, not necessarily Git registry, and one represents the infrastructure as code. For those of you who are like, oh, it's just infrastructure as code. It's that repository, this Git config repository, and you'll see that in this demo. So that's why I'm alighting on it. While Argo can do CI, we're going to relegate it to the world of CD because I think that's where it shines. And Cong would probably agree with me, but I'm not going to put words in his mouth. Here you have checkout, patch, create pull request. That's a pipeline, just like a Jenkins kind of blue ocean-y type pipeline. It's just 3 different stages. So what Tecton does to deploy infrastructure is it updates YAML. Could be Helm. I'm using Customize, unfortunately. We almost made a match, Cong, but I'm using Customize, which is another patching tool similar to Helm, though not quite as fancy as Helm, to create an environment, to patch in whatever I need for a specific environment or allow it to happen, at which time Argo pulls that in. So cool, that's what we're going to see. And the last thing, and then it's going to be mostly demo from here on out, is just this notion of the mighty pull request. So you can't talk about GitOps. No, you can't. Cong can talk about GitOps. You can't talk about GitOps without the pull request, though. This is hugely important. And again, developers are like, duh, I got it. But for those who aren't developers, with a pull request, you kind of have 2 options. One represented by thumbs up, and the one represented by, I hate this. The basic idea is that if you are on the ops side of GitOps, you can control what gets pulled in, right? So that pull request could be on a repo, that Git repo, that you control, not that is controlled by somebody else. So somebody can make a pull request, much like on GitHub, but that doesn't mean you can merge the pull request. That can be governed by ops. What we'll see is that we can use that pull request branch to create an environment. And so we can reason about changes to the environment in real time and look at it. You could have automated tests, or you could eyeball it and then approve it that way. Or you could say, I hate it, and reject it with extreme prejudice, and it will never touch your precious staging environment. In our case, I'll show you the cool store running in a staging environment. Okay? Cool. Now, the first of our public domain superheroes down here, this is Miss Mask. This is awesome. Those are 2 M's, not W's. She's slipped into the public domain. She's from the 1940s, but she fought crime in the underworld using just her wits and a pair of guns. So her reliable pair of pistols. And it matches the humble infrastructure as code. So we're going to, in Git land, in Kubernetes land, we're going to talk a bit about infrastructure as code through YAML, right? That tab-based thing. So I'm going to show you 2 things here. We'll go to the videotape. This really quickly, this is the cool store in the staging environment. And this is the developer view that Cong was waxing lyrical about. Love the developer view. This is a couple of revisions back. Now we're inside the cool store in the staging environment. It's, again, e-commerce site. So we're going to quickly buy something for Joey Jojo. And then we'll see the orders. Eventually it gets processed like you'd expect from a e-commerce website, and it's completed. Okay, cool. No GitOps there. However, now let's pretend we want to start doing some work. So in my OpenShift cluster, I've put a GitHub repo just for the for my own convenience. So you can't stop me. It's my demo. So I've got Git running inside my OpenShift cluster just for the sake of convenience, like I said. And I've got a payment resource here. And what we're going to do, we're going to enter the land of make-believe, and we're going to pretend I can make that payment resource serverless simply by changing these two strings, which is very convenient, wouldn't you say, given that we're time-starved. So I'm checking in a serverless binary. There was a little more that went into it, though, not a ton. And I've set up in my demo, as Cong kind of mentioned, I set up a webhook between my Git repo and Tekton. So Tekton can listen to all sorts of events, and it's busily building an artifact. There's nothing new about that. It's just a typical build, right? And this represents the code that I'm building from. That's the cool store code. This is the new thing. This is the cool store GitOps. In the other diagram, this was on the bottom. Inside here, one thing you could find is Helm charts, right? If we were in Cong's talk, we'd be in the land of Helm. Instead, we're in the land of Customize. Customize uses patch strategies. It's kind of a way to kind of tee things up, to use those kind of patching that's been built into kubectl now, and of course OC. I'm not going to spend tons of time on this. The basic idea is that because it allows you to patch, it gives you a nice target for something like a CI chain to push in certain values that are important to a build, or for Argo to push in values that are important to customize for an incoming environment. But again, the templating, Argo supports Helm, Customize, a couple others that I can't remember off the top of my head. Others might know. Helm, Cong might know. See, I said Helm. Cong and Helm are synonymous in my mind. And again, what you're seeing on screen is just showing you, it's just YAML. So it basically YAMLized the cool store in the GitOps repo, right? So believe for me, and this is showing you some features of templarization. For the sake of time, I'm going to skip through this, and we'll see how our pipeline is going. So our pipeline's building an image. Again, this is the normal CICD. What I'm doing is I'm creating an image that I'm going to put into a typical your repository of choice, whether internal to OpenShift in our case. Sorry, that's in a bad spot. I'm going to build an image and just use OpenShift's internal registry. Then I deploy it to my dev environment. So in my dev sandbox environment, I'm okay to use ClickOps because it's just my dev sandbox environment. And in fact, I don't want to have to write YAML for everything when I've got this swanky UI to make things like a Kafka trigger for my serverless. Come see some of our other talks on serverless and stuff like that. The UI, it makes this stuff pretty easy to use. And I would say the UI, ClickOps, this kind of stuff is great for developer sandbox. But at some point, you have to pay the piper if you want to support it. And GitOps helps us answer how we do that, how we balance those interests of developers and operations. What I'm going to do here, I'm just going to show whatever. It's Knative, so we'll quickly scale through this. Basically, I put things on a queue, and if I invoke the payment service, it's going to put things on a payment queue that says, oh, look, this thing has been processed, right? So you kind of see this go when I curl it right here. So I post to the Knative endpoint, and there we go. So that's the work that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make my payment service serverless. That's how it will look. That's the end state I want to get into, but I'm just stuck in my developer sandbox right now. How will I make it to staging? Well, that's what you have to stay tuned to find out. So I'll pause for a second. Ali, still coming through okay? Any questions? Any public domain superheroes you want to add to the list?
Can still hear you really well. I just wanted to drop in and say, yeah, I'm a big fan of YAML, Mark. But I like the no-code approach, the low-code, no-code.
100% makes it easier. Even if you do know how to code, sometimes all I want to do is drag and drop something in and get my... I'm a big fan of that. Me and config don't get on that well. Just like me and acronyms, but the one acronym that I will approve is YAML, yet another markdown language.
I was also going to...
acronym.
I was also going to say, to get to staging, don't we need some fresh cut mistletoe and a full moon?
Yeah, you've lost it, Steve.
No, it's the thing that, like, you put it into the CICD, you run the test, you hope it works. Anyway, no.
Right, I see. Yep. So all the lucky horseshoes and just don't touch it yet. That approach.
And don't do it on Fridays, otherwise, well, we know what happens there.
Yeah.
4 weekends.
4:59 on a Friday. That's when you deploy.
Yeah, we'll let you get back to it.
Excellent.
Loving Miss Mask, living on her wits.
Miss Mask is great, living on her wits. How about Black Terror? This one's interesting. He basically got his superpowers by inhaling ether at his pharmacy. And he found himself in beauty.
But sure.
The Black Terror is going to help us combat configuration drift, speaking of deployments on a weekend. So one of the things that makes GitOps more than infrastructure as code is that it's alive, is that, as Cong kind of alluded to, GitOps can act to make sure that what you put in Git matches what's in Kubernetes. And it's one of the big benefits of Kubernetes there. So let's take a quick look at that. So over here, let's pretend I'm trying to sabotage the staging environment because, I'm a gremlin or something, and I realize it's almost the weekend. It's not really. But what I can do here is I'm just going to open up a Argo. We might skip through some of this. You guys have seen Argo. You install it by an operator. Now it's supported by OpenShift. I'm so embarrassed that I don't have a 4.7 cluster to show you right now that has the OpenShift Argo, or the OpenShift GitOps, as it's called. Anyway, Cong showed you a lot of this stuff, so none of this is going to be very new to you. This is just showing you Argo doesn't magnify really great. It shows you like all the different things in my manifest for my cool store that need to be deployed, and just showing that my staging application is in sync with Argo. So Argo thinks the Git repo that I've set up is in sync. And there's a ton of events. Oh, Argo, we don't have time to plumb your depths. What we will do instead, we'll take a quick look at this. So this is how it connects. This is part of the magic. So that stuff that scrolled by was some of what Cong showed you before about how it connects to Kubernetes, the Kubernetes API. I've done some work behind the scenes to already connect it to the GitOps repo. This is the one that I showed you guys before. And I've matched that repo to the namespace, or as Cong said, the project in OpenShift land called ArgoCD demo stage. If I so desire, like this is sort of the manifest inside of Argo that represents this Argo project. You kind of saw that YAML early on in Cong's demo. Just skipping through this, let's just cut to the chase. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just quickly show you what happens when I try and sabotage this staging environment, right? So here's my cool store UI. Maybe I'm like, ugh, I hate this thing. I'm trying to get back at the ops team. How dare you? So I kind of kill the front door of the cool store. What Argo notices, because I have automatic sync on, Argo noticed the problem and quickly redeployed the service. And that extends to all aspects of the resources that Argo monitors, even the, oh, okay, so you notice the deployment was gone. Ha ha ha. What if I go in and like change this tiny value somewhere? Like if I go in and I'll just change what the label is on the order repo. If I save that, once again, nothing misses that squid's eyes. It notices that, whoops, that changed. And like you would see in operators and stuff like this, it changes it automatically, right? So yay, my cool store is still running. Thank you, ArgoCD. And you can see it kind of, I try and set it to 0, it brings it back to 1. Enough of that. So think of the Black Terror and how he combats configuration drift. Moon Girl, she apparently, it grew up, it sounds like a Wonder Woman clone. I'm sorry, I read the backstory on it. But the fun thing is that she can only marry a man that beats her in battle. This is apparently the 1940s sensibility. So I don't know if Moon Girl ever found anyone. But she's going to help us decouple tool chains from environments. And I'm sorry for the stodgy values of the 1940s, but check the internet for Moon Girl. It was only 10 cents back once upon a time. So what we mean by decoupling tool chains from environments is that kind of notion of pull versus push. So let's take a look at what that might look like. Unfortunately, I'm going to spoil you a little bit. This deployment's going to fail. It's okay. We'll make it better. But this is just to show that pull requests are going to protect the staging environment. From before, there are 2 Tecton pipelines. There's one for building the artifact, and there's one for patching the infrastructure. This is the pipeline for patching the infrastructure. This is going to push into the repo that Argo is watching. So all this is showing you, I needed to figure out what artifact. So I look at the build ID, the artifact's name for the build ID. And what you see here is I'm saying, I want you to use artifact blah, blah, blah. That's how it's going to change. It's going to patch some of the config based on what the actual payment image is. And I'm going to say, because I put this in Tecton, I want to generate a preview environment because I want to show off. So I want to be able to see that preview environment, have it materialize using the wonders of GitOps before I put it in staging. So it builds all this. I'm going to skip through this for the sake of time, even though I've already time-lapsed this. Patching the config, if there are questions on that, I can go back and show you how all that's done. But you can basically assume, like a Helm chart, I've just changed some values in the values.yaml, the equivalent of that. And what you'll see here is I told Argo, hey, there's a new application for you. There's a new branch for you to watch. Would you please set up an environment for that branch? And by environment, I mean namespace, project, and that's what you see here, much like you saw with Cong in the ubiquitous journey. So, oh, but there seems to be a little bit of trouble. You can see that turning yellow and red. Ooh, something's wrong with payment. I wonder what the problem is. And I'll just cut to the chase. The problem is that it's broken. Basically, it hasn't been set up correctly for serverless. Bad developer, no biscuit. So what I can do, and you might not do this, but I can kill the preview environment. And that will just clean up the whole environment like it never existed. We don't want those resources still taking up space. The other thing we can do, again, because it's GitOps, we'd be remiss if we didn't go back to the Git repo. What I can show is that my Tecton pipeline, if it had access to this Git repo, was able to create a pull request on my behalf. That was part of what that pipeline did that I skipped through. And when it created them, I could make a message. It gives me some cool information about where I can go to test it out, but I already know it failed, right? I can also look at the changes like I would in Git. Again, I'm going to skip through this for the sake of time. Yes, I made some changes. That's cool. But I can say, this does not work, and then deny, right? So the image that we saw of that stock art, right? And I can close out that pull request. And now it never gets anywhere near staging, right? And that's sort of the magic of it all. Cool. All right, next, let's go back to our public domain. I'll talk about Captain Tootsie and centralized patching, and then we'll come back around and I'll see if there are any questions or anything I should know. Captain Tootsie, this is a commercial grab from the 1940s. Captain Tootsie, as I'm quoting, existed solely to sell Tootsie Rolls, which were a little chocolate candy in the US. And he would literally have to eat a Tootsie Roll before he could fight crime. It was like Popeye if he were commercialized and sold out to the candy bar makers. So anyway, Captain Tootsie is going to help us remember about this thing called centralized patching. That's something that Cong talked about a lot through Helm. I'm going to do it through Customize. Possibly, I might skip through this because we did this a lot through Cong. The basic idea here, I'll just kind of show, because it's important to show, how does a developer get from ClickOps land to GitOps land? Well, in Kubernetes, it's easy because everything you did with a UI is going to be able to be expressed in some sort of YAML or JSON. And that's what I'm showing here. So a developer would have to know a little bit about Git to be able to reason about it enough to put it in the GitOps repo, but that's sort of an open sourcey way of doing things. You would have some developers that are more back-end and ops aware, and they could help with taking a sandbox environment and coaxing it into something that goes into the GitOps repo. The other thing about the GitOps repo, it doesn't have to be just for Tecton to change. You can manually go into the GitOps repo and make some changes. Again, as long as whatever branch is being mapped to a particular environment, you don't have control over, or if you fork the repo to follow a GitHub type model. And all I'm showing here is like, I can change the resources around to have a Kafka source like I created in the UI. And instead of a deployment, I can have a Knative service. Like that's what this is showing. So I'll just kind of skip through all of this. Cool. So that's the basic idea. That's how we get from ClickOps to GitOps, right? Cool. So Captain Tootsie and config. This is patching. You can use Helm, you can use Customize, you can use any number of things, right? And I'll just pause there briefly. Ali, any questions? Anything I should know?
Sure. We did have one question, but Captain Tootsie kind of reminds me of, I don't remember, Roger Ramjet and his proton energy pills. Do you remember? Really? Used to take proton energy pills and you get really strong. I mean, these days, the 80s and 90s were quite interesting for superheroes, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
Maybe not something you could put on anymore either. But only question that we had was one I think Cong has answered. But it was, is this cool store demo available as a hands-on repo? Kong's answered saying you can check out your repo, but I'll let you answer as well.
Yeah, all of this can, so what you see here is the, there's even a walkthrough in that repo that if you so desire, you have an OpenShift cluster with cluster admin, you should be able to stand up all of this as a script that lets you do it. Newer repos use Ansible, but yes.
I have a request for this demo. In particular, the products in said cool store be more like Antarctic based or frozen. Because then it will be a cool demo.
No.
Oh gosh. I thought you were going with the public domain. I should have sold Tootsie Rolls in the cool store and like ethers.
But it's a cool store. Anyway, I'll go back now.
You need one of these hats, Mark. I'm sure you've got a few lying around. But
to protect my head.
Recommend putting one on. Anyway, back to the talk.
Excellent. So the next thing, this one is fun. This is Microface will tell us about infrastructure reviews and no more God mode tool change. For those of you who are fans of NPR, which maybe you are, maybe you aren't, Planet Money have done a series on public domain superheroes, and they're resurrecting this very one, a man who invents a mask that allows him to have supersonic hearing and can throw his voice using the power of the microphone, which I guess in the 40s was amazing. But anyway, Microface is here to tell us about two things that I'd rather just show in the demo than talk about too much right now. One is the infrastructure reviews, as we kind of saw, but this time it's going to pass. And also a little bit how Argo does the pull, right? We see the final pull into staging. So let's just do that right now for the sake of time. So when we last left our heroes, this time a developer got a friend to help him check into the Git repo, and not just the image that's serverless, but the infrastructure around the Knative, the actual serverless code, the Knative service around it. So this time the difference is the source revision of GitOps is the serverless branch that I changed myself. And then I'm going to do the same thing I did last time, where I want to generate a pull request branch, and I want that branch to create an environment, and that's where I'm going to see if it all works. Tekton, like many things in Kubernetes, has its own CLI, so I can kind of see as it's going through, or I can use the OpenShift UI to take a look at Tekton, which is OpenShift pipelines. That's what you see down at the bottom there. So it builds on a branch, tells Argo about the new branch, and Argo gets to work. What we see here is Argo is now building out our cool store in developer mode, slowly pulling in the Knative service, and all the different things are popping into view. This is already looking more promising. And because my environment was set up in such a way that each environment is self-sustaining, right, I should be able to run the cool store from inside this environment. It's just showing you some of the infrastructure that came along for the ride. If we go to the cool store, which is down there, we click on that, what we'll see is that it's the cool store, but there are no orders, just proving that this isn't already set up, right? So when I buy something, it's going to be new and only local to this environment. So you could imagine this being an integration test or it could be manual. And now I can have this peace of mind to know that, look at that, my serverless build completed the purchase. So that's good for me. And over here, so now this time I can clean up my preview environment if I so desire, if that's my regulation, and I can go back to the pull request and approve it, which is what we'll see here. When I go to back to Argo, I can see all the differences, right? But this time, once again, Tekton made another pull request. Tekton can't get tired of making pull requests. It doesn't matter. Reject Tekton all you want. But this time, I'm happy with what Tekton did, just looking at some of the patching that it did. So Tekton didn't have to change some of the YAML resources. It just changes the things that are patchable, like a values config, if you will, or the values YAML. So I could say, looks good. And I could merge that pull request. And that is the magic. At that point, I'm merging it into master. And I've set up, as you saw before, Argo to watch master on this Git repo, right? As soon as I do that, this is the staging environment. And I turned off autosync. And this is a little bit of what Cong was showing you before as well. It just knows right away that it's out of sync. And it can tell me which aspects of it are out of sync. And it turns out it's payment. It also can reason about Kubernetes at a higher level. So the diffs are a little bit easier to read, which is cool, but we're not going to go deep into that. So you get the idea. It's so nice reading diffs. Then when I actually hit the button, there's our staging environment. The cool thing is it's sort of very point to point. It doesn't just raise the whole environment and recreate it. It only changes the resources that it needs to. And I check the prune branch just to get rid of resources I don't need anymore. Argo is very configurable in that way. You may have resources that you want to keep around. But you notice payment gets killed, the new payment comes in, sort of like renovating a building as opposed to leveling it and rebuilding it. And then slowly it says that the sync is okay, and the Knative service kind of goes back down to 0, as I'd expect it to do. That was part of the point. So if I go in and I want to buy something, you've seen this a million times by now, I enter, and sure enough, I should see completed from before. That was my old payment, and what I should see when I refresh is the serverless bill, which is good for me. Excellent. So, Ali, do we have time for one more little demo? Maybe 3 minutes.
Yep, that's for it, Mark.
Cool. The last thing, the ghost. The ghost was taught by yogis in India, and somehow they taught him how to travel through time. I don't know. Yeah, yoga doesn't do that for me, but he went back to the court of King Arthur. Well, good for him. But you can roll back in time in GitOps land by using that auditable history, that graph that we talked about, that GitOps, that's behind GitOps. So there are a number of ways you could roll back. Argo has options to do it, but I thought I'd show you like, hey, it's really governed by Git. Why don't I use a Git client to roll back? So let's take a look at that. The other cool thing about the rollback here is that it's auditable, and any branch I had, I can roll back to, and it stands to reason I could reconstitute that environment, at least subject to what dependencies that environment has. What you see here is I'm using fork to basically back out a commit, so revert a commit. And by doing that, I'm just pushing it into the repo. I've already connected to that repo. When I do that, Argo will notice, whoa, wait a minute, something changed. Argo is saying to itself, I can hear Argo. And you can see I'm going back to the future, back to the past, back to the way that it was before with the payment service that's always sucking up tons of resources, right? Or whatever that thing's doing. So once again, I click prune, I say synchronize. Again, Argo could do this automatically too, just for the sake of demo. I'm allowing it, I'm telling it when to synchronize, and it does the reverse of what we saw before. Gets rid of the new resources, puts back the resources that didn't, that we got rid of. So that comes back in. And then the last thing I'll show is that when I actually go to buy stuff, just fun, what do I deserve? What did I get myself? A polo. Ooh, I'll look good in that. And I check out. And this time, what I expect to see is the output from the original payment service, which is what I see. And I kind of knew that would happen because I recorded this before, so it's not so amazing. But those are a lot of the different things that GitOps does. And you can see it as part of a SecOps tool chain when you have worlds of I have to audit, and how do I know a given environment actually matches what I intend that environment to have. So GitOps is sort of a gateway to more SecOps aspects and thoughts around auditing and attestation and things that are becoming more and more topical around, since things like SolarWinds has happened in the US. So as we mentioned, links to this repo exist, as well as a whole bunch of fun links. We also had links that came through about how to try out OpenShift, whether at learn.openshift.com or the new developer sandbox. Yes, I've given the PDF to Ali, so all these things should be available. And I'll pause there if there were any questions.
Thank you very much, Mark. Actually, speaking of, I'm not ready, damn it. Speaking of superheroes, here's one for you, Buzz Lightyear.
Nice.
To the clouds and beyond, I say. Cong did have one quick question, so I'll let him ask that.
Okay, so Mark, what is that interesting looking Git GUI that you got there when you were doing your fork?
Yes, this is, and I'll zoom in on it a little bit. This is Gitty.
No, not the one, the other one.
Oh, fork. Oh, fork. Let me see. Do I have fork? Yes, I think I do. Yeah, right here. Yeah, it's a Git UI for back. I love it. As you can see, I use it a lot. I have a lot of different repos in there,
Cool.
including a repo I'm working on around change data capture on Friday. Ooh, change data capture in Debezium, so cool.
Nice.
Yeah,
Thanks for
this is cool. Is this a that's an open source thing or a? Wait,
They'll take donations, but they are open source.
Always up for that. No, I was going to say when they're developing it, do they? And it's a bit meta this, but do they fork the fork? But anyway, that's all.
It's got to get confusing for them.
Yeah, that was my thing. Anyway, no, thank you. That was amazing. Where did Ali go?
Oh no.
So, there she is. Woo! Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, there was a lot of people on the stage, so I thought I would just step off for a minute and let you have the applause there. Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Mark. Really appreciate it. Sorry, I'm a bit carried away with Buzz Lightyear now. Anyway. We had the questions, Cong Nguyen, amazing talk as well. So next we want to talk about some upcoming events, Steve. And first one coming up, one of our favorite events for the year is Call for Code. So I'll hand that over to you.
Totally is. And for that one, I'm kind of conflicted whether to switch to the field or to the Mars. I'm probably going to go field because this one, for those that don't know, is our Tech for Good hackathon series. Now in its fourth year, run alongside the United Nations and basically built out to help teams build out solutions that just help people, which as a developer, that's one of my favoriteest things. Yeah, that's a word tonight.
And as Ben was saying, we punched above our weight last year. So many teams made it to local and global finals last year, and we came runners-up in the world. So of 500,000, I think, entries or something like that. Second. So amazing. We'd love to get first this year. So if you've got a great idea for change, want to make a difference to the world, come along.
Well, yeah, not only do you get the chance to sort of build something out that IBM will help you take to market, but you could potentially win some prizes to help you do that. Some cash money basically involved. First place is global. First place is 200,000 US plus IBM brings in some amazing folks to help you build out that project. So some of our past winners have gone through that process and have been open sourced underneath the Linux Foundation and essentially are now going on to, help people everywhere, literally everywhere, all over the world in all different ways, be it, frontline fiery protection, so worker safety.
As well was a big one last year, so really great idea. Yeah.
And this year's three themes are going to be announced in a few weeks. So I know them. Yeah, you saw what I did there. Towards the end of March, everything will be announced, and there's some code kits that we've currently got in production, which will be available for everyone to use. So, the 3 challenge themes will be announced then. So stay tuned.
Yep, kind of like the GitHub talk we just got, low code all the way with those starter kits. So that's going to be awesome. You do not need to be tech good. Just need an idea to help change the world. That's it. So call for code. Super looking forward to that.
Just on that, actually, I will say that the code kit my team's working on, or the team I'm on's working on, does involve Node-RED. So there we go. Spoilers.
Your favorite, which is a drag and drop good version. You can make whole backends out of it, basically. Really great for IoT projects as well, for those who haven't heard of Node-RED before, and completely open source. So we love it. Speaking of so coming up on the 24th of March, we run an IoT meetup along with Telstra Dev, the amazing Michelle Howie. She's awesome. So myself and Michelle will be hosting that on the 24th of March. We have some great speakers lined up for that. And we're about to announce that coming up this week as well, those speakers. So keep an eye on Oz IoT, another meetup group, if you haven't seen that before. Another one that I really love, and I think I'll let you talk about this one, Steve, is the Barry YAML Demo Day that's coming up.
We do have that coming up. We've been working pretty close with Dean Foley and the Barry YAML crew, working on a few different projects, but helping next week. And actually, we'll be talking about one of the projects we're working on, which is a a chatbot, actually using one of our Core for Code samples from last year. But yeah, Barry Emerald Demo Day, all these links we'll put into the meetup. So if anyone wants to click through, it's free to join, like come network, come hang out with some amazing folks. It's in one of these Remo sessions. So it's a really special map that Barry Emerald's built out. We've helped them build out for the day. So yeah, totally check that out.
100%. And just for those who don't know, Barry Emerald is actually an Indigenous incubator here in Australia, so run by the awesome Dean Foley. He's so great on this mission. Like he's the point guy for everything, really. So yeah, get down and have a look. We were actually doing a mentoring session the other day for a couple of the Barry Emerald teams, and oh my gosh, some of their solutions just blew me away. I was like, wow, this guy is awesome. They are going places. So definitely come and check that one out too if you get a chance.
Yeah, totally. And
finally, we've also got sorry, yeah, we'll definitely see you there. I'm sorry. Finally, we've also got a cloud meetup coming up. It's on the Singapore time zone, so works for Australia as well. Maybe you want to tell us a bit more about that one, Steve.
Other than it being run by some really good friends, and they're going to share a whole bunch of knowledge on chatbots and all sorts of amazing things. That's really all I know about it, but it's totally worth checking out and extremely possible now that we're all virtual. Also, Singapore is one of my favoriteest countries, just saying. They're a fantastic crew, and they're going to have a whole bunch of stuff to share, and like you get to network with a whole bunch of really cool people. So yeah, totally check that one out.
I can at least travel virtually these days.
That's right. Don't need a passport.
And thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to our amazing speakers who gave up their time tonight to give us some learnings. Really appreciate that, Cong and Marc. Thank you for being here. This will go up on our YouTube channel as well, which I might chuck a link to in the chat here just before I leave. So if you want to play it back or check out some of our past meetups, so we had a big meetup on blockchain. We had a quantum meetup. We talked to our Core for Code finalists at the end of last year as well. And we also have a really great one on AI and health in there as well. And we'll have more topics coming up this year. Also, if you have a suggestion for something you want to hear about, just get in touch with me. You can, just get in touch with me on the meetup or on LinkedIn or whatever works for you. I'm usually around and would be happy to hear that. Or if you wanted to give a talk or you have someone you want to nominate, jump in for a talk, let us know as well. And my slides say the same thing, speaker call out. I love this little meme. Now, class, I'd like you all to welcome our guest speaker.
Hey, Ellie.
Yes.
I just want to say, well, I'm actually not going to tell you a joke, but I could. No, I just wanted to say it's been an absolute pleasure and honor, like co-hosting alongside you, because this is my last one. So anyway.
Yeah, it's unfortunately Steve's last event with IBM. And yeah, it's been a really great experience working with you too, Steve, and we're really going to miss you. Although I'm sure our paths are going to cross, and we'll have a few, joint coming up soon. But keep an eye on Steve's socials. We'll find out where he's going.
Soon, yeah, it's all soon. I'm in transit until then, so I switched to my my Falcon seed. Anyway, yeah, Chewy's like plotting in a course and stuff. No, it's been absolutely amazing, and yeah, it's just been great to have someone that knows how to protect themselves from my puns. Just saying. But other than that, yeah, it's been fantastic. Having some crazy adventures.
Saying for developer Steve puns, that's my superpower. Great to be here with you as well, Steve. And I've learned a lot of you and the rest of the team in 2020. So it's been a really, really great year. We'll always have 2020. I am looking forward to 2021 without hurting my head though. So
I don't think you're getting away that easy. I'm still going to come up with jokes and beat up. So.
Yes, Dean, if you have any questions, please get in touch with myself or with Ben Peterson as well. We'll both be able to hook you up and help you out. And thank you, everyone, for being here. We really appreciate it. We're going to stop the recording now. Feel free to jump around the tables, talk amongst yourself, or come and have a chat to us, ask us any questions. And thank you again for being here. And thank you again to Steve. We'll see you on Mars.
Thank you. See you, everyone.